in this panel. I'll intro the panel a little bit before we get them on and intro it. One of the hottest sectors possibly in the world is the gaming sector globally, and also because of its heat, let's say the money follows the hot sectors, and the capital raising part of the gaming business is on fire. So there are a lot of companies listed on the Warsaw Stock Exchange. There are something like 500 gaming companies that are Central European sourced or grown up in Central Europe. And what we have done with this next panel is try to add in gaming companies from Serbia, from Romania, from Slovakia, of course, from Poland, from Ukraine. And we have two of the associations from Romania and from Serbia on the panel, as well as the Warsaw Stock Exchange president on the panel, and KR Group, who is also quite active helping software companies and gaming companies optimize their tax treatment of the intellectual property that they develop in the process. We also have Jason on from Canada, I think. We're trying to get him. So now let's see if we can switch and get you guys on screen.
Okay, thank you. Bye.
Appreciate your patience also as we deal with the logistics of it. Okay.
We can put Nikola and Kacper live.
Let's do it. Okay, we're going to put Nikola and Kacper on screen, and we'll continue to try to get others. Hello, Kacper. You're on. We can't hear you. Maybe you're on mute, or maybe someone's got you on mute. Cannot hear you. Can you get Kacper?
He's not muted.
Yep. Nikola, are you there?
I'm here.
Great. We can hear you.
Excellent. I can hear you well as well.
If you've got a speakerphone like this, we'll hear you better because a little bit of an echo there. But if you've got that, great. If not, it's also fine. Certainly better than Kacper, who can't hear at all right at the stage.
Tom, can you hear me now?
Now we can hear you fine.
Okay,
great.
Super.
Okay,
Thank
good.
You. How are you?
So good, very good, very good. So good panel. So we are waiting to get Catalin from the Romanian Gaming Development Association. We're waiting to get Jason from Canada, who's hopefully not overslept this morning. And we were trying to also get the Warsaw Stock Exchange on. So as Claudia pursues those guys, let's have a short intro. Catalin, we can see your screen. We can't see you. So if not, that means you need to share your screen or...
Share audio and screen.
Okay. Share your audio and video in the top right corner, Catalin, and we can be able to see you. So as you're doing that, Nikola, let's start with you and tell us a bit about who you are, what you're representing, and what's happening in Serbia.
Thanks, Tom. Today I'm here on behalf of the Serbian Games Association that I helped co-found 3 years ago, and I'm still in the role of the president and the chairman of the board. But you know, my journey in the video games industry goes way back, some 13, 14 years ago. I started, and since then I'm always in the sort of business, corporate development, and marketing roles. I've been on the PC side for 5 years, on the mobile and social for some 7 years, and then the last 2 years I decided to change the side. So now I'm running my own firm, and we specialize in advising game development companies, mostly in the Central Europe and Eastern Europe, with commercial matters.
With commercial matters, you said. Okay, yeah. Right. And does that include capital raising issues?
It does. Usually it revolves around finding publishers who would fund the project development, but also distribute the game globally. And in some occasions, it's also related to mergers and acquisitions and raising capital as well.
Okay, great. Catalin, we can see you. I assume we can hear you. If you speak,
Hello.
Great, we can get you. Very great. So let's have you do the same thing, which is sort of a 1-minute intro of who you are, who you're representing, and then we'll switch to Kacper.
Okay. Thanks for the invite. My name is Catalin Butnariu. I wear 2 hats. So I represent Amber, which is the largest independent game company in Romania. And my side job is that I am the president of the Romanian Game Developers Association. So yeah, quite involved in the Romanian game scene. I've been in the games industry for a little over 15 years. Happy to be here today.
Okay, all right. And Kacper, a bit about yourself and KR Group. Why are you on this panel?
That's a good question, Tom. I hope we'll find the answer in the end. But I'm representing KR Group, which is the accounting and tax advisory company working on the 5 markets in the CEE region, in Poland, Romania, Hungary, Czech Republic, and Slovakia. And our main gain is right now, our aim is to enable you to actually make a good use of the tax incentive or incentives which are targeting innovative business. And in Poland in particular, we are observing a very new chapter that was opened 2 years ago. Some people would say 4 years ago, but it's actually to be good to be witness of the changes that we are just facing in terms of being more attractive, more friendly towards the taxpayers.
Okay, so Nikola, let's start with a bit of overview of Serbia. I think Jason's going to be joining us in a second. Okay, great. So and Marek from Stock Exchange. Okay, you're working on that. Okay, great. So so Nikola, tell us a bit about this Serbian gaming world, and of course, Catalin, the same question is going to come to you about Romania. But tell us a bit about what's happening in Serbia. It looks pretty dynamic. I see your association members. There are lots of them. Tell us a bit about what's happening in Belgrade.
Sure.
The whole region.
Actually, it's not just Belgrade. People typically think of Serbia, Belgrade, but you know what's great about the scene in Serbia is actually taking place across the country. So in addition to Belgrade, we have Novi Sad as the second biggest development center, but then also like in the south of the country, we have Niš with quite a few very successful, promising companies. So in short, what's been happening over the last years is like emergence of like new waves of companies, and that's I think like a foundation on which the future ecosystem is going to be built. So those that follow the scene typically know of Nordeus as like the most successful company in the region. And then there have been a few others as well who had a moderate amount of success, but Nordeus was always there as a lighthouse. But what's been happening in the last few years is the emergence of these other companies that have been popping up in the space of technology, such as Trilateral, which was acquired by Epic Games last year. But then also in terms of like mobile game development, PC, console, and so on, we're seeing more teams and people being sort of taking that step to form their own companies and sort of try to step away from being an outsourcing code development studio to actually developing their own IP. And a result of all of that activity and exchange of knowledge and experience resulted in the creation of quite many new studios. And I'm proud to say that today, Serbian Games Association has more than 75 members, and we don't have all of the companies as members. And what's even more encouraging and promising is that we're not talking exclusively about game development companies, but this is the whole ecosystem. So within these 75 companies, you have service providers, companies that specialize in VFX, trailers, motion capture. So there is really a whole scene being set up here. It's still at the early stages, so there's a long way to go. And I often like to compare us with Finland. Finland, 10 years ago. But we are on a very good track, and I think the best testament to that was the report that the startup Genome group did last year, where they placed Belgrade and Novi Sad as the top 5 ecosystems to watch out for as the most promising in Europe.
Okay, Catalin, give us a bit of a quick overview of Romania and what's happening there.
Yeah, sure. So actually, the the background of the industry in Romania sort of echoes some of what Nikola was describing in Serbia, and it's actually, I think, fairly common to the Eastern European region as a whole. There are, of course, local differences. So in Romania, the industry started with the arrival of Ubisoft, actually, in the very early 90s. And for a long time, the main pillars of the industry have been a few big international publishers such as Ubisoft, Gameloft, Electronic Arts, and a couple of others. So these guys, so these big companies, have literally built the local industry in Romania, and however, also what we see here is that in the last maybe starting from 2010 and onwards, so the last 10 years approximately, we see a significant emergence of independent studios. So the numbers are growing significantly from one year to another. At this point, we estimate there are over 100 game development studios in Romania in various stages of evolution. Some are still like 2 people in an apartment. Others are dozens or even hundreds of employees strong. So I definitely see this trend continuing. A majority of the industry is focused, well, is present. It has a presence in Bucharest. There are a few other cities also in other parts of Romania. The second one by size, by number of developers, is Cluj. We also have yeah, so we are also very optimistic about the potential of Romania, and I think Eastern Europe in general is a market to watch out for.
Great. Kacper, I want to come back to you later, if you're okay with that, as we get, because I think we've got Jason jumping on in a second. And again, I appreciate everyone, the technical side. Claudia here, frantically working away to get it all signed up. The technical issues are making it kind of fun and interesting. Jason, you're on. Wow. Good.
My goodness.
We got you. Oh, relax. Good morning.
And it's not working.
A little adrenaline in the morning to get you moving. Okay, we got you. Great. Well, and Claudia is going to keep working. We'll get the Warsaw Stock Exchange on in a few minutes.
It brought back some excitement from like a real event where you're in the taxi and you're trying to get to the convention center and there's something happening.
Yeah. Okay. So, Jason, let me ask you, first of all, are you ready for your presentation?
I'm always ready.
Are you able to? Okay, so if you have a share screen, or what have you got there?
Yeah,
you want to just walk through it?
Yeah, I've got slides. Yeah.
Okay.
Catalin, great to see you. Nikola, so nice to see you.
Good to see you, Jason.
Kacper, I don't think we've met before, have we?
No, we haven't. This is a good opportunity.
Where are you from? Which country?
Warsaw.
Oh, you're okay. So you're a local guy.
I'm in the local. Trying to represent Poland here as well.
Nice. And are you with the association or?
No, from the tax, business, tax advisory business. So looking at how the states are competing with each other to attract the business right now.
Interesting.
So, guys, let me do. It's a strange situation. We've just learned that there's a limit of 5 people on the screen at any one moment, and that's why the Warsaw Stock Exchange can't get in. With the risk of insulting whoever asked to jump off for 10 minutes, Kacper.
Okay. No worries, guys.
But what we'll do is all I'm going to do is take you off for about 15 minutes, and then I want to put you back on. So hang on the screen. And since you were, I think, the best technically to have it all figured out, stay there. And I think when that's done, I'm going to ask then at the end of it, Jason to pop off and Kacper to jump back on. So,
no worries.
But for the moment, Kacper, I'm going to ask you to jump out. You can still listen. Jason, I'm going to have you do this presentation.
Yeah.
GamesDev Stock Exchange is going to jump on as Kacper's out, and then we'll do that.
See you in a
Perfect
moment.
situation.
Thank you
Sorry,
so
guys.
much.
Sorry for all that. Stay with us. I'll buy you an extra glass of wine, Kacper, but stay on because we're going to have you back on the screen after a little while.
Okay, no worries.
So
Bye.
you're out, Kacper. Jason, you're on.
All right. Should I share my screen now, or I wait for?
Yeah, let's just share it now. See if that's going to work.
Okay. Yeah, let's see. Yeah, there we go.
Cool. We got it. And do a little bit of a 1 minute background about who you are. Maybe that's part of your presentation.
Yeah, it's fine. I normally don't spend too much time on bio stuff. I know I only have 10 minutes, so a lot of ground to cover.
All right, you're ready. We're ready for you.
Do I have to click anything?
I think you have to click your screen to whatever you want to do next. We see your screen, so I think you're in control of it.
Okay, well, you just tell me when I'm live and ready to go.
You're live. You're live right now. Get on.
Okay. All right. So
we've been live.
All right. Well, we've been having some fun backstage, kind of juggling stuff. So
well, we're not backstage now. We're live.
Yeah, we're live. We're live. All right, folks. So I'm Jason Della Rocca. I'm dialing in from Canada. I've been part of the video game industry for about 25 years. And the last decade or so has really been focused on the funding, startup, and entrepreneur ecosystem side of things. And so it's an honor, it's a pleasure to speak with you today a bit about investing in games. For those who are not necessarily paying attention, and I apologize if some of these numbers have been shown already. I only just got into
you're first.
Okay, great. The video game industry is massive. There's a great resource called Newzoo, and they have all these beautiful charts that show you how enormous the game industry is. In the range of 150, 160 billion annual sales, and growing every year. It's been growing, for the past 2-3 decades. And even now during COVID, the game industry performs well and tends to be quite resilient to economic downturns and so on. So the game industry is actually having one of its best years ever, but huge amount of money and revenue. To give a bit of perspective, on this chart, the yellow line is annual video game sales compared to the blue and green bars of music and film. And we can see that as an entertainment sector, that video games dwarf these other forms of entertainment. And essentially, video games are the #1 form of entertainment today. There's all kinds of more information to dig into with regard to video game sector and breakdown by country, et cetera, platform, and so on. But just to say, it is huge. It is billions and billions of dollars. And you can go to a few websites like Newzoo that have information and breakdowns. Just as some recent examples, just a couple of weeks ago, a company called Playco raised $100 million as their A round at a $1 billion valuation. They're doing what we call instant games, which is mainly for like chat platforms and Messenger and stuff like that.
Where are they based out of?
These are they're global. Like they're in Tokyo and Hong Kong and San Francisco. They're kind of a distributed team. Last month, in June, Zynga made headlines by acquiring Peak Games based in Turkey for $1.8 billion. They do primarily mobile games. And then as another example on the IPO side, Unity, which does technology and tools for video games, just did their IPO at almost 14 billion. The IPO was 1.3 billion. Put their valuation close to $14 billion. Unity was founded in Denmark, if I'm not mistaken, but now largely operates, the head office is in San Francisco, but they have operations all over the world. Those are just a couple of examples from within the past few weeks, literally. As a side note, there's a great website called investgame.net. That tracks all of the funding and M&A deals and IPOs and stuff like that. They have a handy newsletter, weekly newsletter. So if you wanted to be able to track what kind of deals and stuff are going on, I'd highly recommend investgame.net. All right. So why is it then that, with all of this action, with all this money flowing, with all this success, early stage investors, VCs, angels aren't more active in games. And it really often comes down to a lack of understanding between project funding and company or equity-based funding. Of course, most VC or all VCs are on the company, we invest in company side, but the problem is they don't often understand how to look at a game opportunity and understand whether or not it's a suitable for project-based funding or rev share-based funding versus company funding. And really it's a question of distinguishing the business model in that project-based funding looks like hit content, sort of like the Hollywood model. You're placing a bet on a particular game and hoping that it does well, versus on the company side, you're really looking for things that follow a SaaS style of business model. And then what does that imply from a pricing point of view? On the project or hit side, it's premium, meaning I go to the store, I pay $50 to get my disc with Call of Duty on it, or I download it or so on. Where of course on the SaaS side, in the game industry, that tends to mean some form of freemium or free-to-play type of business model. And from a success point of view, the project-based or premium-based projects tend to be more of a linear type success. So you're doubling your money, you're tripling your money, whereas the company or SaaS-oriented investments tend to have this exponential, explosive ability, and is often why, of course, VCs tend to appreciate or enjoy SaaS-type models, because you're really managing that user funnel and trying to have explosive growth. And so, this is a really simple way to break it down, but oftentimes the game entrepreneurs don't even fully understand that there's different sources of funding on each sort of side of that equation. They just sort of come to investors and say, hey, I've got this cool game, I need some money. And then the investors, have a challenge to sort of break it down. Super quick, let's look at project funding and what the logic is here. Of course, it's about the project, right? You're looking at a game that has perceived commercial potential. You've done your competitive analysis. It looks promising. Normally, this is sort of game as hit content, as I said. It has premium pricing. It's fixed content, exhibits a linear success curve. And you're doing essentially revenue share deals on the project. So you're investing in the IP of the project. You're taking a future share of the revenue, and you might get various IP rights like the right to sequels and stuff like, or derivative rights and so on. And of course, the focus there is on taking that project to market, as quickly as possible. I'll super quick. I mean, sources, timing. It's more about production, right? It's where are you in the production pipeline depends on which sources of funding may be suitable for you. Whether it's kind of self-funding in the beginning, or you go to publishers kind of during pre-production, early production. You might use Kickstarter, do pre-sales. Again, it's all focused on the project, but I won't spend too much time there. Prizes from festivals and so on. The more interesting one I'm imagining for the folks in the audience, it's the company side funding. Now, you should all be more familiar with this, of course, is this company has perceived potential to grow and exit. And of course, early metrics and KPIs or traction show promise. You're really looking at the grid of the founders. Typically, this means a SaaS model, or in the game industry, we call it GaaS, for game as a service. Free-to-play or freemium type pricing model, normally some kind of endless gameplay that can keep, like matches that can keep being replayed. And this exhibits that exponential success curve that investors like. And obviously you're taking, the studio is taking funding now in exchange for equity to the investors and various shareholder rights, but all of you are very familiar with that. And here, of course, the focus is on growing long-term company value. This diagram should be fairly familiar to most folks, and that depending where you are in your profitability, you have access to the different sources of equity funding, whether it's friend, family, and fools, angels, seed VCs, growth VCs, etc. I won't even spend any time there, but let's look at one example, and that will close out my intro. A studio called Small Giant out of Helsinki, famously in the game industry, made a game called Empires and Puzzles. They started a few years ago. They were co-founders from various other game studios in the region, and they figured, they would start their own studio. So if we follow them along their curve, in the beginning, it was sweat equity. So the co-founders put in some of their own money, burnt into their savings. They had a vision to make casual games on mobile. They put the leadership together. They built their prototype, and off they went for about 6 months. After that, they were able to score an angel round of $900,000. They were able to complete their prototype and generate some initial promising metrics or promising traction. They had their corporate vision in place. And with the 900K of angel money, they were able to secure a seed round of 3.1 million. And then they were able to launch that initial game. Unfortunately, when they did the launch, it didn't perform as well. And so they killed it. They pivoted to more of a mid-core audience as opposed to pure casual. They had some internal analytics tools. They built a second game prototype, and that started to get good traction and was producing a 3 million run rate. So we see the blue line, the profitability line, start to ramp up. With that traction, they were able to raise a proper VC round of 6.1 million. Within 10 months, that second prototype became Empires and Puzzles and was generating a $33 million run rate, I guess. And with that kind of success, they were able to raise a 41 million growth round. And then about less than a year after that, they were purchased by Zynga for $560 million with, I think, additional performance bonuses. And this was a relatively small team. I think when they started, they were maybe 4 or 5 guys. By the time they had their initial success, they were only about a dozen. And I think even when they were purchased by Zynga, they were still sub 20 staff. And the whole point with Small Giants was because they were veteran talent that they believe they can have a relatively small team and have this big success. And it sort of speaks to one of the interesting things about games is you often get a lot of leverage for your investment that with with a modest investment, if you do have something that scales, it really can scale quite large, just as this example.
Hey, Jason, could I interrupt you and be a little bit rude and ask you to finish the screen share part, but keep talking, but let me have that screen space. Now we're going to get Marek Dietl, the Warsaw Stock Exchange. Oh, Jason, you left. That doesn't mean you leave. Okay, now let's get Warsaw Stock Exchange on. Okay, now we're going to try to get.
The name is Marcin.
What?
The name is Marcin.
Okay. Marek Dietl, we're trying to get on the screen. So while Claudia tries to get Marek back on. Ah, there you are. Hello, Marek. Great. Hello, Jason. You're back.
Yeah, I was on my last slide anyways. I was just saying, the opportunities are out there. So go
Thank you guys all for the patience and the tolerance of this new technology. We didn't know there were a limit of 5 screens on this, but okay, now we know that. So it says Marcin Goncio, but it's not Marcin. It's Marek Dietl from the Warsaw Stock Exchange, the CEO of the stock exchange. Marek, welcome. Give us the 1-minute intro of yourself, first of all, and why the Warsaw Stock Exchange is on the panel about gaming business.
Oh, he's on mute.
Can't hear you. You might be muted. Let's see. Yeah, can you hear? Can you hear? Can't hear you. Nope. Let's see. Oh, okay. Marek, apparently take off the speakers. That might have been the problem yesterday. So says Claudia.
Nope.
And you're muted, apparently. You've muted your own screen, possibly. Yeah, so you need to unmute it on Hopin. But bottom of the screen, there should be a place for you to unmute yourself. Yeah, exactly. Not yet. But keep talking. You're going to pop in a second. The bottom of the screen, you see it? Okay.
I see that Marek is still muted.
Is he still muted?
Yeah.
You've muted yourself somehow. At the bottom of the hop-in screen, there's a button there. There are 4 little icons and the microphone button, which you might have been muted. Yes?
Maybe you can try rejoin.
Yeah, you want to try to rejoin in 1 minute? You want to go off and try to rejoin? go off and try to rejoin, I think.
It's someone I help because we had the same.
Yeah,
Okay.
I fixed my video problem the same way. I just refreshed the entire page and
Refresh the whole page.
yeah, logged in again, and that.
Okay. Okay. So see if you can get back on. Okay, he's going to try to get back on. So while we're doing that, Jason, give us your last few minutes on, not the screen, please. Don't share your screen. But do tell us a bit about your last comments before I interrupt you.
Yeah, I mean, it's, you know, for investors, it seems pretty obvious that they want to see things that have that exponential potential. But then often, you know, when someone comes to them with a game opportunity, they don't really know how to identify whether it has that exponential potential. And part of the challenge is that the game entrepreneur also doesn't really distinguish it. It's just, I'm making something and I need a big bag of money, and that investor over there has a bag of money, so I'm going to go try to get it from them. And they're not really sort of parsing whether or not they really should be on the project side and looking for project sources, or whether they're on the company side. And so I think investors tend to get a lot of stuff that really doesn't match a venture style model. And so that just understanding that sort of split between premium and freemium, or, you know, game as content versus game as a service, already allows you to filter stuff better. Right.
Marek, we've got you. Speak.
Perfect. Can you hear me?
Great.
Yeah, so refreshing the page was the issue because I was unmuted on the page, but well, great. Nevertheless, hoping is great. Event is great. Thank you for having me here. I'm here because we are number one venue for gaming companies. We have currently 49 companies listed with the Warsaw Stock Exchange, and I'm really excited to listening to Jason talking about raising money for games, and you distinguish two different types of fundraising. One is for company, what we have 49 companies on our venue, studios, gaming studios, so more than Tokyo 47 or Korean Stock Exchange 36, so we're clear number one. But we also introduced a new platform. It's called Raise Mana, where you can raise money via tokens for the particular title on the revenue share model. So we actually tackle both models Jason have just described. So I'm very happy that we fit to the way of thinking of guru of this industry.
And Marek, how do you explain to some extent how Warsaw has become such a success on listing companies, the gaming companies? I mean, it's quite incredible that you've passed Tokyo, but in terms of number of listed companies, of course, the market cap, I'm sure, is bigger in Tokyo, but it's still an incredible success. And I'm curious what you attribute that to. Why is that the case?
Well, in a very nutshell, we used to have in Poland, or we still have, or we have had a very strong film industry. Alone Polanski as a movie director, quite famous worldwide, and other movie, and even under communism, Polish film production was quite strong. So the people from other countries were coming here to produce films. So we have all the infrastructure of film production, very good film school, sound masters, different people around that, and we have great pool of talents when it comes to technology. According to the HackRank, we are number 3 in the world in the quality of computer scientists after Russia and China. So the combination of tech talents, and we have quite a lot of tech talents. We have more STEAM alumni per year than all the Scandinavian countries combined, and only 15,000 less than Germany. So we have great, not only quality, but also quantity of talents. Combined with this experience in film production, resulted in evaporation of many studios. Then there was a company, the project, which is currently 16th place when it comes to market capitalization worldwide from the gaming companies, so among top 20 companies. And the increase of the evaluation was from 10 zlotys on the IPO, zlotys is local currency, around 4.4 zlotys per euro, to to currently around 400. So the people made 40 times money on this. So when you see a relatively big company, close to $10 billion valuation with a great growth 40 times from IPO, then you encourage other investors to look for the other studios. There were great proliferation, hundreds of studios, around 300 are now, but at the beginning of around 100 studios. So the people started to trust the industry. Then the analysts followed the suit. So our analysts are very capable on analyzing gaming industry. So all the big investment banks use their analysis for trading the gaming stocks. So we have whole ecosystem, both on the creative part, on technology part, and on the financial market part.
And Marek, in terms of the listed companies, you said, I forgot the number. You said 497. Was it 497? What was the number?
49 listed companies.
Oh, yeah. So of the 49, how many of those are not Polish companies? And if you look at Ukraine or other markets, do you see that as a potential for more listings? Because it seems like, I've been surprised how big the Serbian and the Romanian and Ukrainian gaming business. I didn't realize it was so big. Call me Mr. Ignorant today. That's fine. But I didn't realize it was so big. But is that a target market for you guys? And what percentage of those in Poland, WSC listed now, are Polish companies?
From the formal point of view, they're all Polish. Now the US company, Huge Games, will be listed with us, which is incorporated in the US. So formally it's a US company. But it's not, it doesn't matter where you formally are registered. The question where the talents come from, and they come from all around the region, especially east from Poland, like Belarus, Ukraine. And there is in Poland you have access not only to on Polish-born and educated talents, but also talents from the neighborhood countries. And when I was visiting some of the companies which are listed or in my past capacity when I was working for the venture capital industry, I realized that Poles are quite good in acquiring talents and integrating the talents. Just to give you one idea, there is a huge Armenian diaspora around the world. Around 8 million people, Armenians, live around the world, and 3 million only in Armenia. And there was also a minority in Poland from the 14th century. And this is the only case in history of Armenia when a diaspora integrated with the local people is in Poland, actually. So Poles are somehow good in assimilating other nations or nationalities. And that's why the talent mix is quite diverse, as Poland was diverse before the Second World War.
Yeah, and so okay, so let's jump around a little bit. Speaking of, let's go to Romania, Serbia, and wrap in the financing question. If a Romanian or Serbian gaming companies looking to raise capital, to Jason's point, are they understanding the different types of business models that are attractive to investors? And then the follow-up question from that is, are there legitimate ways to raise capital in Romania, in Serbia, or is it immediately to a outside market? And is what Marek is saying, do any of them look at the Warsaw Stock Exchange as a potential?
Well,
Nikola?
Sorry, go ahead.
I'm asking from the perspective of Romania and
yeah, sure.
Serbia. Nikola, you go first.
Yeah, sure. So the situation in Serbia when it comes to capital and raising money is pretty grim, I would say. In a sense that there is not enough capital on the market for game development studios. There's few reasons for that, I would say. One, I think there wasn't really a culture or a track record of raising money before. There weren't that many successful studios, so that very little of that knowledge was spread around. That's changing rapidly over the last 2 years, but if you look at the last 10 to 15 years, very few cases, and most of the companies have been bootstrapped. Second reason was that, typically, I don't know how it is for Romania, I would love to hear, but typically when you have a VC or fund or anybody coming in with some capital, they would feel more comfortable and therefore often require the companies to establish a business somewhere like London or Germany and so on, just because they're more familiar with the legal setup, they know what to expect in the legal framework there, so they typically request the companies to go there. So that played a role. Again, I'm saying it's changing, and the Serbian government is making some good moves that are aiming at both angel and institutional investors to come in and invest in local companies. But there's still a long way to go. And I actually know that we've been having a conversation with the stock exchange, with the team from Marek about this option as well, and it's something to be considered. But I think for most of the companies, they still have to cross these more common ways to be considering raising money via a stock exchange. There is not that many bigger studios that will be considering that. Yeah, that's kind of the situation right now. And I would say that there is a few companies that are looking to raise a sort of bigger capital, but for most of the studio, they're still in sort of the seed phase, looking to raise, from 50 to 500,000. That's I would say is for the majority of the companies. That's sort of like the sweet spot right now.
And in Romania, Catalin, tell us a bit about the angle from Bucharest and Romania.
Yeah. So it depends a lot. Again, generally speaking, the situation echoes Serbia and the other countries in Eastern Europe. I think it depends a lot on the growth, the level of maturity of the studio. If they're just starting out, they will be most often looking for project funding initially. First 1-2 projects. That's the way it happens. They work on a prototype. They look for a publishing deal. So maybe they get funding from a publisher, and it builds from there. As they're growing, they will start looking for other options. And here it's also a matter of education and how developed is the entrepreneurial culture in each respective country. Unfortunately, in Romania, this is something that we're still learning. So maybe 10 years ago, developers would have been very reluctant to give away parts of their company. So I think this is sort of a trust issue that is maybe a specific of Eastern European cultures. Things are changing, things are evolving. Developers are getting more exposed to what happens in other countries. And it's the same case for investors. So investors are learning as well. We have not had major investment deals in Romania that are financed by Romanian investors. Romanian investors have only recently started to look at gaming companies. I would say maybe in the last couple of years there have been some movements. So, but I think there's a lot of potential and a lot of activity that is just starting to happen. And even talking about the Warsaw Stock Exchange, people are noticing what is happening. So the growth over there is spectacular. So I mean, congratulations on the 50 companies. Just a few years ago it was like 15 or something. So that's absolutely amazing. I have heard of investors that are looking to take IT companies and gaming as well and list them in Poland. So this is definitely becoming a trend. I have also heard of investors trying to replicate or intending to replicate in Romania what happens in Poland on the Bucharest Stock Exchange, which is, I think, a bit ambitious at this stage, but you got to start somewhere. And yeah, there are companies. I know there are companies currently looking at the option of listing on the Warsaw Stock Exchange, and this includes the company I'm representing, Amber.
Okay. And Marek, tell us a bit more. You touched on it. It was a quick one sentence, but you touched on the kind of the one revenue sharing, capital raising innovation of kind of a revenue share. Take us through that a bit more. I couldn't quite follow you what that's all about.
Yeah, I mean, let us imagine there is a group of people coming from different studios. They form a new company. They used already their sweat equity, and they want to still raise some money, and they are not ready to go for a capital market because their track record is a little bit unclear, and they are also looking for a market. Their brand is also for the studios unknown, so they are looking also for marketing mechanism. So they can issue tokens on our venue with the blockchain tokens, and for a kind of smart contract, which allow to each holder of the token has a share in the revenues from the game. And the mechanism works like this: that people like the idea of the game. They buy the tokens, they invest in the tokens, so most probably they would download the given game. If they download or start to play it in a SIS model, most probably if they invested, they will either say nothing about the game or they will say something positive. So they increase the chance that other people will start to use it. And in SIS model, as Jason correctly said, it's exponential model. So every first user counts for 100 next users, because the more people use it, the more other people want to use this. And this is a mix of marketing mechanism and financing mechanism. It's the main driver for the new teams is to raise money, but also for established companies, they are also considering issuing tokens for this marketing issue, because they want to get their clients, they want to convert their clients to kind of fans, investors who will be recommending, and it will be self-fulfilling prophecy. So if you have investors who are at the same time your users, your chances to get nice traction are much higher. And this is a quite new things we introduced a couple of weeks ago, and we are really excited. The interest is great among the studios we talk to. So we will have this token, the issue of tokens in the first quarter of the next year. I'm sure it will goes into dozens. So we will have more and more.
Jason, what do you think about that strategy? It's that tokenization of a particular game.
Yeah, I mean, fascinating, Marek. I'm super curious to hear more about this and how that system works. I mean, in part, it sort of speaks to the interest and excitement around games and the way that you can kind of scale up fairly quickly. I wasn't aware of this effort, but I guess it's a fairly new model. Yeah, I mean, I think that it's exciting. It's also dangerous, if a bunch of folks buy token in games because they saw some cool dragons or ninjas or something, and then that game doesn't perform. There's a danger there that these individuals start getting burned on projects. So there's always a sort of a burden on the.
Don't be so negative, Jason. Think of the positive side.
Listen, I work with game developers all the time, and unfortunately, many of them don't have an entrepreneurial mindset. Right? It's much more of an artist's mindset, and they have their dream of dragons and robots and whatever, and just please give me some money so I don't starve, so I can sort of birth my dream. And so you do end up with a lot of developers who go anywhere they can that provides any kind of funding. And if you don't have smart investors on the other side to identify whether it's investable or not, then you get a lot of burnt investors.
So has there come up yet I know that the stock exchange has created do you have a gaming, I don't know if you have a gaming index, is that something you've done? But I'm curious if there is yet already for Poland or Central Europe, let's say, a niche of gaming specific investors. I mean, Jason, you'd be one of those guys out of Canada that really knows the sector, but is there already do you see that from Romania or Serbia or Poland, sort of a guys who've become specialists in the gaming sector that are fund managers or even private equity guys or even individual
I'm not aware of that. We see a lot of in venture capital space. There are a lot of interest there because if you have an average valuation or revenue 88 times 0.3 times PE, so profits, so you have very rich valuations there. And of course, there is a money to be made between, if you can sneak in between the artist and the capital market, you can earn a lot of money. That's the basic model for the venture capital. For private equity, it's a very difficult topic because there is nothing you can leverage on build a financial leverage, because every game is very uncertain. It's what also Jason said about this movie industry in Hollywood. This model is not really appropriate for the private equity investors. And when it comes to the public market investors on the stock exchange, they are strongly base their decision on analytical support, and we have world-class analysts in Poland who cover major gaming companies, and the quality of research is really good. So obviously, if you have good traction of the shares, you have good analytical support, then the public market investors who manage large portion of assets and have to decide very quickly, they go for that. And also, we should not forget that global investors like to associate the given country with something special. Like in French, you say spécialité de la maison. So what is speciality? And actually, this 49 companies, when we progressing, almost 60% of our recent IPOs last 2 years were gaming companies. And we became known in this ecosystem of public investors that we are a gaming hub. And simply, if you feel like diversify your portfolio into gaming, you might consider Poland. So sometimes I'm quite amazed when I talk to global investors, and they are not particularly well informed about Polish macroeconomics. They are not aware of some pros and cons having local currency. Some believe that we have euro. Doesn't matter, but simply they know that there are global gaming companies out there, and you can buy them. There are very low spreads, so the companies are liquid, and they go for that. So it's a completely new type of investors. Until very recent, we had investors who were investing in banks, utilities, and so on. So the macroeconomics factor, regulatory factors were of primary interest, and those other investors are simply investors who want to be exposed to the gaming industry. And we are number one place, at least in Europe, and hopefully pretty soon globally, to look for the publicly listed gaming companies.
So one of our audience members is just added to the chat room that Smoke Ventures in Warsaw has a specific focus on the gaming sector. So there's your first VC doing particularly gaming.
Exactly, but there are also some others looking, but mainly in the venture capital space, we have also large governmental support for VCs. I can bet that the highest public aid for the for jobs are in the venture capital industry. So actually there's a lot of public money, and they go also to gaming. Even our National Center for Research and Development has a special program to support R&D in the gaming industry. So everything is in place. This whole ecosystem works together quite fine.
Well, Marek, you couldn't have set up a better segue to me bringing back in KR Group Kacper, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to go off the screen at risk of never getting back on. I'm going to go off, and I think we'll get back on. But Kacper, I want you to join as I go off here right now, because what they are doing is a so-called IP box, which is specifically leveraging the government push to minimize the tax, or let's say optimize the tax structure for IP software development gaming companies. So let me go off, and Jason, may I assign you during this while I'm off the screen? If anything, you're going to be the moderator for about the next 5 to 7 minutes. I'll pop back on, but in a second, I'm going off. Kacper is on. I'm back with you in 6 minutes. Right?
Yeah.
Go.
All right, now we sing and dance.
Okay, so I hijack this. Hello. Do you hear me well?
Yeah, Kacper, live.
It's good to be back, and I think it was quite symbolic, to put the tax advisory firm into the wardrobe. and waiting for the results. That was a nice move. You mentioned a couple of very interesting things, like availability of founding options, like availability of talents. And you, Marek, just mentioned the ecosystem. And I think that's also the thing that should not be missed in the whole context, in the whole thing, because of course at the early stage it's not that important to see the legal and tax framework as so friendly, but in the end, when you are taking care of your revenues, then there's the moment when you are paying attention to it. So I talked about that earlier, about the rivalry, and there is a rivalry. We can talk about Romania, Serbia, Poland, but in the end, at the state level, we are actually competing. We'd like this capital to be invested in particular country, yes. So how we can do that? Actually, we started this journey 4 years ago, I would say, when R&D tax relief was introduced in Poland. And last year, I think made a picture a bit more complete by introducing IP box regime. And what is the IP box regime in Poland? It's just a 5% tax rate that can be applied to the revenues gained from the IP. And so you can decrease your tax rate in Poland from 19, 18, 17% or 32, depending on whether you are the CIT, so corporate or personal income taxpayer. And the thing is that what I experienced throughout the last 12 months working with innovative sector, having the IPs and commercializing IPs, I can see that it's not the academic discussion anymore. It's the actual application of the law. And the first year was terrible. No one knew anything about that. And even when it comes to the formulation of the principal definitions, we had problems to find the definitions. But in the end, this year, I believe I can see the great progress. Tax authorities are getting better and better in understanding the gaming sector. They allow to treat the full game as the IP. So whatever you're gonna get and earn the revenues from the game, it will be treated as a full. You don't have to segment or fragment your game into the pieces. So whatever you're gonna gain could be taxed at the 5%. And the funny thing was that after 12 months, also tax authorities issued an individual tax interpretation about such cases like porting games, like creating remakes, like co-production, which are vital for you to understand whether the IP is actually existing and whether you can get or you are eligible to get the 5% this preferential tax regime. So that's in a nutshell, that's what we are experiencing right now. And when I said it was not the theoretical discussion, just look at the example of CD Projekt. Yes, in January they got their individual tax ruling, which just confirmed their understanding of the state of the affairs and confirmed that they can use IP box in Poland for their games, or for this particular IP. But as always, we are still saying that to our clients, devil is in the detail, and you know that very well. So unfortunately, maybe we made a progress, but still in most cases, the individual tax ruling would be needed to understand whether for this IP you can get the 5%, so this preferential tax rate. And I will come back to the rivalry part, because I think the countries are actually competing. And I know that among our listeners, there are the person from Canary Island that I talked to a couple of years ago about attracting the Polish gaming sector there. But at this moment, we are more focusing on the CEE region and trying to take advantage of what we are receiving from the States. So.
Oh. The guy from Canary Island didn't like him anymore, so he punted him from.
Am I getting on?
Don't know where. Oh,
well, that's me, Jason. Sorry. we're improvising as we have to do. And Kacper, I think it's the reason we did that was that I'm going to see you tonight at 6:30 over drinks at the Villa Folksal. You can beat me up there, and I can at least apologize and buy you some more glasses of wine. Whereas if I kick someone else off, I don't have that chance to do it. So, so Jason, I'm going to give Jason and Marek the last word here. And first, I'll ask Jason just to wrap up a little bit with comments again about the potential for the gaming sector, Central Europe, to tap into major capital markets around the world. Any kind of final words of wisdom about what we're doing here?
Yeah, I mean, for the investors in the audience, really, it's to kind of be brave and dive into the game sector. That in fact, it's one of the most dynamic, most exciting, highest growth sectors in the world, and there's no reason not to be participating. And it's a bit weird because often when I talk to other investors and they say, "Oh, I don't touch games, it's all hit driven," and I'm like, "You're a VC. Everything you do is hit driven. Like, are you telling me every e-commerce bet you place was a unicorn?" So game industry exhibits similar patterns, and there's, you're just being lazy if you're not, reading the research and looking at the sites and taking the time and sort of understanding how to parse risk and other opportunities. There's just no reason, and the returns are massive and normally happen in a relatively quick time scale. And there's a lot of M&A activity. We're starting to see much more IPOs, like with the Unity one, plus, Marek with the impressive 50 listings on the Polish exchange. We're seeing stuff up in Sweden and, all over the world. Really, there's no excuse not to be more active and participating. And there's good deals to be done at that early venture stage. So get out there and get active.
Great. Marek, any final thoughts, Warsaw Stock Exchange?
Well, very briefly, we as a region, even compared to not that rich countries like Greece, our stock of capital is much lower. We have roughly 1/4 of the capital per capita, amount of capital per capita than compared to Greece, and 1/14 of this in Canada or in UK or Germany. So and we do not have natural resources like crude oil or gold or something, but we have a great competitive advantage in the mix of technology and creativity. So there are endless possibilities for Serbia, Romania, Poland, and other Central European countries in go big in the gaming industry. It's a kind of natural advantage we have here with the pool of talents, pool of creativity. So opportunity is there. Decision is yours.
Super. Thank you guys very much. Fascinating panel. Great to hear from Serbia, from Romania, from Canada, here in Poland. Thank you guys for your patience as well, your insights, but also your patience on the technical side. We got it figured out finally. I appreciate all of you, and plus Kacper, who I think is still listening to us. Fascinating, big sector, big growth, as you said, Jason. Big money in this sector, and I think we'll be coming back to this topic quite a lot in the future. Thank you guys all. I don't know who's going to be in Warsaw at our drinks tonight. I'm sure Jason's not going to be. Catalin, Nikola, Marek might be. We shall see.
Well,
if not,
I was asked not to attend any offline meetings, so sorry, but COVID limits my ability to feast home.
Yes. All right, guys. Thank you all very much. Wonderful session. We're off, and appreciate your feedback and suggestions for next time.